insecurity, I mean globally, and we're told even in Ethiopia that they have been hit by the worst famine in over 50 years, and more than I think 50 million people have been affected by it. For some, probably the new way to go is look at, you know, the GMOs. But there are concerns. I know that even in Europe, in the European Union, there are people who are against it. They are not even part of the people who are adopting it. In America, there are some concerns as well. So why should we be pro-GMOs? I have two gentlemen in the studio to help us do a bit of discussion on it, to help all of us understand and appreciate what they stand for. Daniel Osefosu is a research scientist, Binary, Ghana, right? At the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission. Good morning to you and welcome to the show. Also, Vaspa Suglo is agricultural consultant, Jack Vaspa Company Limited. Good morning to you and welcome.
Thank you.
I will start with pro-GMO. Both? Are you pro-GMO?
Pro-science.
Science. And science gives room for?
Development of the world.
Development of the world. Okay. So just help us understand. I mean, people generally have concerns about GMO, because if you're going to modify something, you're going to use science maybe to get something to grow faster, then it means that that thing may have some dangers. What are the general fears that people come to you with GMOs?
Well, essentially, the fears have to do with health. Some also say that it is something we have no prior knowledge about. Some also are scared that foreign multinational companies will take over our seed supply or agricultural sector. So the fears, there are so many of them. But then, like Mr. Suglo said, we are pro-science. For us, we say that every field of human endeavor has seen the impact of science. Why not agriculture? Yeah.
Okay. And for you, are those fears not justified?
Fears normally,
yes,
as a result of uncertainties by people who do not understand science very clearly. We cannot fault them with those fears. We need to explain in total what it means to allay their fears about those concerns. And science has really gone deep into research to come out to allay the fears of the general public that GMOs are safe and can develop the agricultural sector for the main food security and nutrition. Okay,
so explain to me and the public what are the benefits of GMOs, introducing GMOs, one, and why you think it's a better option for us, even to help us, because like you said, we've used the science for other sectors. Why not agriculture? So explain to us to understand and appreciate that.
Well, so in your business report,
sure,
one of the key things I noticed was there was a lack of raw material for some of these industries we have. Some of the problems that farmers face are real. If you talk to farmers, they'll tell you they face problems with credit, they face problems with poor road networks.
Sure.
But then the biggest problems that they refuse to tell you is the problem with seed, the problem with insects, the problem with poor soil fertility. So even in the country, as a country, we started a fertilizer subsidy program. It's faced several challenges along the line. We also realized that there are some plants that naturally are able to fix fertilizer, are able to fix nitrogen. And in our basic sciences, we learn about these legumes. The ability to fix some of these nitrogen
sure,
is a result of genes that they have that enables them to attract very key microorganisms
sure,
that would then trap the atmospheric nitrogen and convert it into something that the plants can use. There are also plants that are able to stay in drought. Yeah, you go to the desert, you find plants in the desert. Now these are as a result of genes that plants have. Now with the advances in science, we realize that you can move genes. Genes are essentially made up of the same building blocks. For any living thing, it's made up of 4 key bases. adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. Now, the construction in every organism is the same, but then the arrangement is what makes a difference. So scientists have, gone through the motions of learning about the genes and how we can manipulate them, and then we've realized that in plants that lack certain things, we can put these genes in there. And plants are some of the most versatile organisms in the world.
Okay.
So we can put these genes in there and get them to, come up with the products we want. And in the long term, farmers will tell you that if I'm spending less on fertilizer, if I'm spending less on insecticides, as a farmer, I am saving more, I'm getting more yields.
Okay. All right. You explain more about this biotechnology, and then I'll ask about the greenhouses that people create, for vegetables. So you plant in buckets, you put the soil in buckets, and after a period you have to destroy. Explain more about the biotechnology.
Okay. So biotechnology is a broad field of science. Most people mistakenly equate GM to biotechnology.
Okay.
But biotechnology is like the mother science, and GM is just a subset of biotechnology. Biotechnology is any science or any process that uses microorganisms or their derivatives to make or modify processes. So, for example, if you put your corn down, if it's fermented, it's as a result of the actions of microorganisms.
Okay.
So basic fermentation is an example of biotechnology.
Okay.
But then now there's a more advanced form of biotechnology. One of the tools of biotechnology is genetic engineering. I like to say genetic engineering better than genetic modification.
Sure. And in fact, the one I was reading up is genetic engineering that kept popping up.
Yes, because genetic modification takes place whether a scientist is working on something or not. It's a natural process. So when you look at humans, even humans, we have evolved over time as a result of our genes being changed. Now, genetic engineering is a field of science that works on DNA. It works on modifying genes in organisms. Essentially, genes are what make you who you are. Whether you have brown hair, whether you have green hair or not, it's the genes that make it. So when we talk about biotechnology and we talk about genetic modification, people shouldn't confuse the two. But genetic modification is just a tool in the agricultural toolbox. It's not a means to an end for everything.
Okay, all right. And then I'll come to, where people should be given if we decide to go that way, to inject more that way, people should be given the option to choose what they want, because there's got to be a bit of labeling so people can choose, because you can't just impose it on everybody. But for you, what are the basic things you want people to get? What are the misconceptions about the GMOs that you've heard around?
Some of the misconceptions are that they believe GM could cross over with the natural plants and could cause problems.
Okay.
But in the screening processes, these are catered for to make sure that GM crops and conventional crops look very much alike, so that there will be no problem with crossover.
Okay.
That has been one of the major things. The other concern has been raised by consumers. They think that GM crops can affect their health, which is also a misconception. In the screening process, these are all things that the scientists take into consideration. They make sure that the procedures to ensure safety of GMOs is really taken on board.
Okay, all right. And then about labeling, right? I was reading, I just want to share this with you, that this is a project that is dedicated to non-GMO. So they are against GMOs. And, most developed nations do not consider GMOs to be safe. Countries like Australia, Japan, and even countries in the European Union have restrictions or even outright ban on GMO. So if the most advanced countries are hesitating to adopt it, Why shouldn't the Ghanaian be concerned that because we pick a lot from them? Why shouldn't we be concerned?
When you talk about most advanced, I don't see which country is more advanced than the US.
Oh, they have restrictions. I'll read that to you. No, continue.
I don't see which other country is more advanced than China, Brazil. These are all superpowers that are growing GM. When people talk about Europe banning GM or outright rejection of GM, it's not true. There are countries in Europe that are growing GM. You know, you have to do an assessment of your country, of the needs you have. If you've never been hungry, when someone talks about hunger, you wouldn't understand it.
Being hungry doesn't mean you should rush to develop poison for people.
Well, GMs are not poison.
Okay. No, I'm just saying.
Yes.
All right.
The misconception going out is that it's technology that is new to us. But then this year is the 20th year of the commercialization of GM crops.
Okay.
There has never been a court case anywhere in the world that someone has eaten GM and has died. I don't know what else people need to know or need to understand to be able to know that GM is safe. The technology, like Mr. Suglo said, goes to a lot of processes. You said in a pot,
sure,
in the greenhouse.
In the greenhouse, yes.
When you start the GM process, when you want to engineer a crop, first you have to show your proof of concept. You have to do your gene mining, get to know the gene, know where you can insert it. When you insert it, then you do a lot of replication in the lab, because probably you want the gene to be expressed in the vegetative state. You don't want it to be expressed when it's seeding. So when you go through that process, you would have to harden the plant. That's when you put it in pots,
sure, in
the greenhouse. Now you are exposing it to the normal conditions it will face.
Are those genetically engineered?
No, not. I'm sure you're talking about tissue culture.
Okay,
I'm sure you're talking about tissue culture. It's also in the
biotech. Okay, biotech
yes.
under. Okay, all right.
And it's done with even conventional breeding.
Okay.
Yes, but you know, when in all the stages, it's regulated.
Okay.
In Ghana, we have a law that regulates every stage, right from going to the lab to do the gene mining, to get to know this is the gene that I need. There are regulations. There's a law.
Okay.
And there are even punitive measures. For a scientist like me, if I go and I go to a lab that is not registered to do that,
okay,
I can face imprisonment.
Okay, so if we decide to go, earlier I made a point about, do you think we should separate them so the consumer should be aware that, okay, this is GMO, I'm opting for it, this is non-GMO, I prefer that? And how will that help or not help the discourse?
Consumers have to know what they are eating.
Okay.
That is one of the things. So there's a lot of awareness creation under the Biosafety Act, as he has mentioned.
Okay.
So you have to create the awareness of the consumers on the benefits of GM products.
Okay.
And ensure that they actually know exactly what they are consuming. So the label is what is the bone of contention in some countries. And I don't think that is that much of a problem in Ghana.
Okay.
Because in the US, they have come to accept that there was no need labeling GM products because they are the same as the conventional products. So
Okay.
why the differentiation?
Okay, I see.
Let
I
me
see.
add
Yes,
on.
quick one.
You
All
see, labeling comes in when you have basically packaged products. But in Ghana, most of our foods are not labeled. If you go to the market, you want to buy plantain, is it labeled? Do you ask how the plantain was grown? For all you need is a healthy plantain to eat.
Okay.
Now, as a country, if we want to label everything, then we might end up overburdening our consumers. Because
especially if they have reservations, then it's only right that they are allowed to know what's in it. I mean, whether they can read it, whether someone has to explain to them, they still should have that right.
Then it means we should label everything we have on our market.
Okay.
You know, when we talk about GM, people are looking at crops that are very alien to us.
Okay.
But then, as a country, we have problems with some of our crops, like cowpea.
Yeah,
Cowpea faces a very big problem, Maruca infestation. If you talk to any cowpea farmer, they might lose up to 90% of their harvest when a Maruca insect infests your farm. Now, when cowpea is on the market, how are you going to label it?
Okay, all right. But let me ask about how does the genetically engineered products, how does it work in terms of production? Because a lot of the concern is that, oh, food insecurity, it's faster, it's this. How does it work? And how will this eliminate the food insecurity that we talk about? Both of you can answer that, please. Yeah, but you can start.
Okay. Genetic engineering enhances the yield levels of crops.
Okay.
The quality is enhanced, and the marketability is also enhanced. So if we look at these attributes as against the conventional, we can use that. You can have 9 times the yield of conventional plants with GM products. So if you have to feed more people, you need to make sure that the farmers' yields are enhanced. And it's pretty difficult with the conventional to go beyond a certain yield level. That is why the GM is introduced to ensure that.
Okay, so in terms of turnaround time, in terms of volumes or quantities, how does that help?
Well,
vis-a-vis the traditional farming that we're doing and
conventional breeding that is done by a lot of scientists can take anywhere between 10 to 15 years to come up with one variety.
Okay.
So when you hear crop research has come up with a new variety, it means you should go back 15 years when the process started.
Okay.
It doesn't start at a go. But even that, you would have problems. When we are doing crossing, let me use a very simple example. A lady says, I'm short, I want to marry a tall person. But then the tall person might have a lot of diseases, okay? You might get children who are tall. Well, that's what you want, but then they also inherit the disease from their father. But here's a case, if you have a technology, and I'm using this in terms of plants, if you have a technology that is going to give you that trait of tallness without the added diseases, then you would have a very good technology.
So that's what G is offering?
Yes. And another thing is that it shortens the time for transformation of plants. From the 10 to 15 years, you can shorten it to about 3 to 4 years. Once you have your gene of interest and you've done your insertion and everything.
How do you incorporate the farmer?
How do you incorporate them?
Yes, how do you incorporate the farmer? Because they are not scientists. They just think that somebody else is designing something to overtake what they're doing. How do you incorporate them then?
Well, farmers are some of the best
agents.
Yes. If a farmer adopts something day one and 2 years down the line it's not working for them, they drop it.
Okay.
So in our work, we actually look at the needs of farmers. It's not just like a scientist decides I'm going to do GM. I enter the lab and I do the GM.
All right.
But then you have to know the needs of the farmer before you can start.
All right. And final words from you about how we can incorporate farmers and then what's the next line of action now? If you can answer that as well.
With GM?
Yes, please. Yes.
We have a law, and we are on contained field trials.
Okay.
So that the next thing is we are working towards is to place GM crops on the commercial market.
Okay.
Commercialization has not yet taken place in Ghana yet. We are just at the stage of contained field trials.
Okay, where are we doing the trials?
At the Crop Research Institute.
Oh, Crop Research Institute.
Savannah Agricultural Research Institute.
Okay.
I don't know whether Binari you.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. But Savannah Agricultural Research Institute and Crop Research Institute.
I see. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, both. Daniel Osefosu is a research scientist at Binary, Ghana Atomic Energy Commission, and also Vespa Suglo Agricultural Consultants, Jack Vespa Company Limited, both trying to, allay fears and the misconceptions about GMOs, like they prefer to call it, genetically engineered. We engineer, we put cars together. So the engineering of it, the science of it is good. So we should not worry. It's in the trial stage. They are yet to commercialize it. And when it's on the market, I would know that this is GM, right?
You will.
I would, right? All right. Thank you both very much for coming to our studios.